I'm Lit Girl 66. Today we're going to be talking about literary theory, or the various different types of lenses that we can use to perceive or look at literature. Many of these theories also come from basic theories about how humans live or how they behave. These are not theories that only apply to literature, but from this perception we're going to use them primarily to look at literature. So we're going to be talking about René Girard's theory on mimesis. So mimetic is what you do when you mime someone. So you are miming someone. So like the mimes on the street who make little boxes, that's pretty much the principle of what a mime is. A mime attempts to represent the actions or behaviors that another person is doing. And its most basic idea, mimesis is that you mime someone else. You do exactly as they are doing. And it is the basic idea of how humans learn. When we learn to talk, we mime how other humans are behaving. And therefore we're capable of learning how to speak for ourselves. However, the key by mimetic theory is the idea of the mob, the idea that we are all striving after a while for the same ideas, the same principles, because we all want the same stuff. We want the same things. We want to have what our neighbor has. What plays a large part in the mimetic theory is like the idea of following the Joneses. You want to keep up with the Joneses. You want to have the newest convertible. You want to have the biggest house. You want to have everything that your neighbor has. And you don't want to seem as the outcast or the person that does not have those things, because you're seen as not as the outcast but as the failure if you're incapable of having those things which are perceived as basic needs or basic standards, because those are the things that humanity values. Therefore, the idea of mimesis in, like, for instance, Don Quixote de la Mancha is he wants to behave in the same manner as those men, brave men that he reads about in his own books. And he wants to mime their actions. He wants to become the heroes that he reads about. And in this world, too, we often strive to have those things which our neighbors have, or that everyone else has, or that we perceive as being good. But we often don't recognize the reason as to why we want those things. We want this particular education because we think that it will make us better, because our neighbor wants it and he obviously knows what he wants, and therefore it must be precisely what we need. We feel that we need what other people need, and what they need is good for us, even though we don't have an entire real conception about what we really want. We don't understand that. We can only understand that through other people. And mimetic behavior has been going on for all of human existence. We realize, or we come to identify, that practicing particular things leads to human improvements. To make a fire, like the guy next door, is useful because now we can cook meat, and the fact that we can cook meat means that the meat is tastier, so we're getting more nutrition out of the meat, and we don't have to eat it raw anymore, so it must be beneficial because our neighbor's doing it, and it is beneficial. It also leads to the sort of sense of competition that makes certain kinds of economies work. Because we want the things that our neighbors have, because we want to succeed in achieving a certain amount of things, we work to compete for the same thing. And therefore, we are creating a system in which we have a certain amount of goods that everybody wants. We're creating value by placing value onto something. If we think that ice cream from this particular shop is the best sort of ice cream, that's really good for the market, because the people who make that ice cream are now being highly valued. Like, what they have is now valuable. We create value through this system. We also create competition. We create needs and wants, and we set a standard or an idea about how people should live, whether we recognize it or not. And part of what Mimetic is as well is the idea that it's almost necessary that we do so, because we could not survive if we don't behave, if we don't want what other people want. We instinctually want the things that other people want. And Rene Girard realized that. And he realized also that this theory is not limited to one spectrum of academia. That's why he had difficulty defining himself as an academic. He realized that he could not be truly an academic because he was saying that his theory, he was claiming that his theory could embrace all of the world. And it could. And because of that, he was very much criticized by many of the people who went against him, because his theory was very much in opposition to certain Christian ideas and yet embracing others. It was against avant-garde, yet it was embracing it. It was embracing so much of humanity, and therefore it was sort of seen as a bit vulgar, and it was seen as being perhaps a bit too brutal. And it is, because it views mob behavior. It views the idea that even intellectual improvements were only created by the fact that we wanted to have the same successes that our neighbors have. And even our early stages in life of becoming what we think to be an individual were actually created by other people. And that can be somewhat frightening. And in literature it can be extremely frightening too, because in terms of particular movements and uprisings, you can see that a particular movement in literature, whether it's the beatniks, or whether it's the transcendentalists, or whether it's the surrealists, all of those movements were created by an idea that suddenly was embraced by others. Even inventions were taken in the same regard. If some printing press got an improvement, all of the other printing presses, if they want to remain in the standing that they have, will have to get that new printing press. Otherwise, they'll be unable to continue to survive. So, thank you for the time. I'm LitGirl66. See you next week.